Hi, I'm Mark Farber, and this is Accounting Fundamentals. We're going to talk today about freight costs, and really any other kind of cost that's associated with inventory. We said before that when we cost out inventory to a company, what we're taking is the price that the company paid for that inventory as the cost per unit or for the inventory as a whole. And it's not just the cost that they physically pay for the inventory itself, it's all the costs that are required in order to make that inventory saleable. And what we mean by that is if the inventory comes into your store and it's in pieces and the store has to pay somebody to put it together, to put it up on the shelf and make it saleable, then the cost of putting it together, those assembly costs, become part of the cost of the inventory. Similarly, if you had to pay duties or you had to pay specific taxes to bring the inventory into your store, that becomes part of the cost of the inventory. Finally, if there's discounts or any other special charges or rebates that you get, those come off of the cost of the inventory. And freight cost is an important one. If you think about the fact that a lot of the stuff that we sell here in Canada might come from the US, might come from China, the cost of bringing that inventory into Canada, into your store, can be very high and a very significant portion of the costs. And the question is, how do we treat freight costs? Because in some cases, the company pays for them. In some cases, it's not included in the inventory cost. And it really depends on something called an FOB point. And you can look in different texts, having problems with English today, and FOB will be defined as different things. It'll stand for free on board or freight on board. It doesn't really matter to us what it stands for. What it means is it's the point at which ownership of the item changes. Think about a store purchasing something from a manufacturer in China. While that item isn't the manufacturer's facility in China, it's clearly owned by the manufacturer. And when it's in the store and on their shelves here in Toronto, it's owned by the store. But who owns it when it's traveling between, when it's on a ship or it's on a boat or on a train or something? Who is responsible for the item while it's in transit? And at what point does the ownership change from the manufacturer to the store? Well, think about it this way. We have over here is the manufacturer, and over here is the store. And two obvious points to designate the transfer in ownership would obviously be right here or right here. In fact, it can happen at any point, but we're only going to look at these two. If the change in ownership happens over here, then we say it's FOB seller. So the person who's selling it or the company that's selling it, as soon as it leaves their facility, and quite literally as soon as that product goes onto a truck at this facility, the ownership is deemed to have changed. That means that while it's in transit, if it's FOB seller, while it's in transit, the store effectively owns it. The buyer owns it. If something happens to it en route, they owned it, and it's their problem to deal with, essentially. But more importantly, because they own it during this period of time, it means that the buyer pays for shipping. If you own it, you have to pay to ship it. Okay? The other possibility, or the other common possibility, would be FOB, and it's usually called FOB destination or FOB buyer. And in that case, ownership doesn't transfer until the goods arrive at the store or wherever they're being shipped to, and the store accepts them. And so that's an important feature, because if the manufacturer is shipping over a bunch of glass products, for instance, and the box arrives here at the store and they come in with the big box and they say, okay, please sign for them, until the store signs for it, they haven't accepted ownership of the goods. So if they look at the box and it looks like it's been beat up pretty bad and everything inside is most likely broken, they can choose to not sign for it, they don't own it, and it goes back to the manufacturer. On the other hand, if it was FOB seller and it gets to the store all broken, well, you own it. You got to deal with it. You can still go back to the manufacturer and say, you sent me broken stuff, but it's yours at that point. Whereas if it's FOB destination, it's not yours until you physically sign for it. But moreover, since you don't own it till it gets there, or the store doesn't own it till it gets there, then the manufacturer or the seller owned it for this entire process, and therefore, seller pays for shipping. And again, as I said, shipping can be a very expensive process, especially if you're shipping stuff across the globe. And so who pays for that shipping and who's required to pay for it is a very important part of figuring out the cost of the product. Now, how do you know whether it's FOB destination or FOB seller or FOB anywhere else in this process? It's going to be defined in the contract. So it's negotiated as part of the price when the store and the manufacturer negotiate what they're going to buy, how much, and how it's going to be shipped. But that's something that you have to keep in mind. And as an accountant, we have to know what was the FOB point, and therefore who's responsible for the shipping charges. And if it's FOB destination, then they're excluded from the cost of the inventory because they were paid for by the manufacturer. If it's FOB seller, then they're included, and we have to take those costs and include it along with the cost of the product that we purchased and any other cost involved in making that item sellable.